take action, the collapse of our civilization.
Before COVID, climate change was the big crisis.
What I'm saying is the planet's on fire.
When COVID is conquered, climate change will be the big crisis again. Saying it's not a crisis makes some people mad. Students at Georgetown University honked horns to prevent others from hearing Mark Morano say it.
They do not want dissent.
They shout you down at schools.
What do we want?
Climate justice!
Georgetown police said they'd never seen an event shut down like that before.
How dare you?
Of course young people fear climate change. They've been frightened about it since they were little.
Rising sea levels would displace millions.
It's an indoctrination that's so complete that by the time they get to high school, they're not even aware that there's any scientific dissent.
I do go to a class of 16, 17-year-olds in school and start talking to them about climate, and they are amazed to hear that there is an alternative point of view.
Climate justice!
When do we want it?
Now!
These students don't want to listen, but Morano's new movie, Climate Hustle 2, includes facts they should hear. Politicians should hear them too.
If we would do more on climate change, we'd have fewer of these hurricanes and other types of storms. Everyone knows that.
No, everyone doesn't know that. Listen to Congress's own hearings.
Are hurricanes increasing?
In the United States and globally, no.
Are tornadoes increasing?
There's no evidence to suggest that they've been increased.
Are droughts increasing?
According to the EPA and according to the IPCC, the answer is no.
You wouldn't know that watching CNN.
There will be irreversible damage to the planet.
The media do hype every scare. And when Morano says they exaggerate the risks, they call him evil personified, a climate denier.
Why should we believe you? You're getting money from the fossil fuel industry.
ExxonMobil, Chevron funded.
Yeah. You're not?
Not at all. I am paid by over about 90% individual contributions from around the country. Why would ExxonMobil give me money? And we would gladly accept the money, but they're not interested. They want to appear green.
Cut their greenhouse gas emissions in half.
Morano's movie also frustrates activists because it points out how hypocritical some of them are.
Ladies and gentlemen, the thrice-nominated Leonardo DiCaprio.
I try to live a green lifestyle, quote unquote. I mean, I've done the things that I can do in my house to make it my house green, energy efficient appliances. I drive a hybrid car.
Bet he didn't drive his hybrid to
a billionaire summer party in Sicily with celebs like Leonardo DiCaprio, Katy Perry, all in attendance. They all came together to discuss, wait for it, you guys want to guess? Don't read the prompter, don't read. Okay, global warming. I know.
Got it.
Okay. Did everyone miss the memo on this?
It's like me promoting weight loss and eating a cheeseburger.
They just don't walk the walk when it comes to that lifestyle.
I like watching Morano point out celebrities' hypocrisy, but one point in his movie probably goes too far.
Stopping climate change is not about saving the planet. It's about climate elites trying to convince us to accept a future where they call all the shots.
Your movie suggests this world government conspiracy that they want to rule us, but I think they are genuinely concerned and they want to save us.
And the biggest climate bill in history, the biggest ever, $369 billion to slash emissions by nearly half. This is a whole new chapter for America and for the planet. And we have to do a lot more. I pledged $11 billion a year to help poor countries fight climate change.
The most historic investment to fight climate change. As we are talking about extreme weather, I've gotten multiple questions on Puerto Rico and what the people of Puerto Rico, our brothers and sisters, are going through. What may happen in this hurricane season. A lot of that is going to be helped by the work that this president has done, bipartisan infrastructure law. Again, the Inflation Reduction.
All right. Welcome to News from the Pew, where we take the news from around the internet and distill it to make it slightly less frightening. I am your host, Rick Barrett, and I actually have my panel back for the first time in ages. The Fab Four are here. We have Mr. Steve Cunningham, who is from Census Fidelium, censusfidelium.tv. Jonathan Arrington, who is actually braving in to give us a report from Florida. We have the one and only Fawaz Yazi, who is dropping more and more hints at how great his next album will be in December. You got to follow him on Twitter and Instagram to get a preview of those. And, of course, the one and only finally joining us back, Ryan is finally here. In between the 100,000 other things, Mr. Ryan Grant gives us the time to hang out with us. We're very happy to have him back. And I am two down. I've seen Ryan and I've seen Jonathan in person, which means Fawaz, you're next, and Steve probably never.
Probably never. It's not happening unless Texas leaves.
That's
I
right.
got live footage of Jonathan on the way.
He'll hey, I mean,
if you look, Jonathan is right behind this. That's his car right here.
Right in that area.
He's a little slow.
Is there an alligator with him?
There it is, right there.
Jonathan ain't worried about none of that.
He's like, come at me. Is that all you got? Lieutenant Dan style.
It's a little nasty because he's not using the bike, so he's using the car instead. So with that shows you how dangerous it actually is over there right now, because that's how he rolls, because he's actually a very good dude. I was very happy to meet him a couple weekends ago down in Tampa, fighting the good fight, getting rid of the people that are hanging out in his church when they're not supposed to be. So John is doing a great job there. Let's jump right into it. Big news from the last time News from the Q was on.
He got out of the car.
There it is, my man. He is here and he's hanging out with us, and so it's good to see everybody here. So let's get right into it, because I know our time is short with some of them. The big news out of Italy is the election of apparently Mussolini with high heels, which in 2022 just could mean it's a dude who's cross-dressing, but it's actually a female. The election of Giorgia, see, I just made him a dude, Giorgia Meloni, out of the right-wing Brothers of Italy party. I don't know if you have any videos of her and her celebration as she was elected as the next prime minister of Italy this week.
The Patriot Pope knew perfectly well that nations and the fact of belonging to a people sharing the same historical memory were the bedrock of the freedom of every man. He never tired to repeating that there is no Europe without Christianity, a teaching which is more topical than ever today, when the Christian identity of Europe is under attack by a distorted secularism that even attacks the symbol of the Christian tradition, while throwing open the gates to the most intransigent form of Islam that wants to apply Sharia law in our European homelands, and which lies at the heart of the Islamic terrorism that has caused bloodshed in Europe and in the United States. John Paul's second patriotism also enabled him to view today's historical events in the light of a Christian realism.
Potrei farne tante altre di queste domande. A monte c'è quella che ci facciamo oggi: perché la famiglia è un nemico? Perché la famiglia fa così paura? C'è una risposta unica per tutte queste domande: perché ci definisce, perché è la nostra identità, perché tutto quello che ci definisce in questo tempo è un nemico, per chi vorrebbe che non avessimo più un'identità e che fossimo solamente schiavi, consumatori perfetti. E allora è sotto attacco l'identità nazionale, è sotto attacco l'identità religiosa, è sotto attacco l'identità di genere, è sotto attacco l'identità familiare. Non devo potermi definire italiana, cristiana, donna, madre, no. Io devo essere cittadino X, genere X, genitore 1, genitore 2, devo essere un numero. Perché quando sarò solamente un numero, quando non avrò più un'identità, quando non avrò più radici, allora sarò lo schiavo perfetto in balia della grande speculazione finanziaria, il consumatore perfetto.
Brink of having its most far-right government since World War II. Ultra-conservative party leader Giorgia Meloni is claiming victory in a general election that would see her become Italy's first female prime minister. Let's go live to CNN's Barbie Nadeau in Rome. Barbie, what do we know about Italy's new leadership this morning?
Well, you know, Giorgia Meloni is largely untested. In the 2018 election, she only got 4.5% of the vote, and she's just skyrocketed in popularity. What we do know, though, in the two regions where her party rules, we've seen clampdowns on abortion rights. We've seen a lot of anti-LGBTQ rhetoric. And so there's a lot of concern that her conservatism on the far right is going to affect groups that are are largely unsupported in this country anyway. She's also anchored by coalition members, the Donald Trump-loving Matteo Salvini, who is unapologetically a Trump protege, and also Silvio Berlusconi, you may remember his name, three-time prime minister of this country, sort of a political caricature. So these three are leading the country going forward. But
So we have a new right-wing boogeyman out of Italy. First of all, when the stereotypes of an angry Italian woman pretty much confirmed, as you could see it in that second video. You don't want to make an Italian mom angry because that's how they sound like. But also, didn't take them any time. We're just going to go Ryan, Fwaz, John. Didn't take them any time to go fascist Trump. Lightning speed.
Nope.
Of course,
No,
Ryan.
exactly.
What's a fascist?
Basically, whatever the left doesn't like is suddenly a fascist. It doesn't matter if it accords to historical understandings of fascism, either philosophically or in terms of totalitarianism, or you just don't like something that the liberals like, and that suddenly makes you a fascist. And that's the reality we're living under. I'm listening to Georgia speak, and I'm seeing the Venn diagram of everything come together. Of first now it's equal opportunity. Women could be fascists too, right? And then everything against abortion and the alphabet people, and you add in so many things, and she's ticking all the boxes. It's almost too good to be true, frankly. But you notice the soft hypocrisy in everything in the left. So this is one of the most popular referendums in modern Italian history, where you have, as far as I understand, and Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been there more recently than I have, but everything I've been watching on this shows that she has more people went out and voted in this than in many recent elections. And you look at county per county, her coalition has overwhelming majority of support in Italy. So really what it is that, democracy, we've heard nothing about threats to democracy for so many years. And now people voting the wrong way is a threat to democracy. In other words, people expressing democracy when it doesn't turn out for the left, that's evil. Because ultimately, and most Americans, if you've never met like a really liberal European elite, someone who's totally bought the farm on the progressive, Kiwis Totius Mundi, citizen of the planet type of attitude, then Democrats look tame compared to that when you see European liberals and European elites that really bought the farm on that subject. And so when you look at Europe is not allowed to have a history. Europe is not allowed to have an identity. Every other race and culture has its identity. You can have movies made about them, even though they're totally factually wrong. They glorify them, or this or that other person. You can take traditional European stories and you can race swap, you can gender swap, you can destroy the entire story itself in order to tell a modern progressive message. You can't have Ryan Gosling play Black Panther. You can't have, because there would be screaming murder if that happened, right? Which I would agree with, by the way. But you can do it to European culture and traditions all you want. Period dramas. The left is declaring period dramas have to die. You can't have any more Jane Austen. You can't have any more Trollope. You can't have any more Wodehouse. You can't have any more continental drama. You can't have Shakespeare because it's so white, as in it's European, Christian, all the stuff we hate. And so here she is, just, I don't know if Italy is even capable of course correcting from the last 70 years. But if it's possible at all, everything she is talking about can at least, like I said, if it's possible, everything she's talking about is all the right message to make it happen. And that's why they're freaking out.
So, Fwaz, everybody, I liked your take. You came up with something immediately that I agree with, but I want you to talk about it. Yay, Giorgia Meloni, that's fantastic. But Fwaz, why is it up to her?
Yeah, well, first of all, kudos to this courageous young woman and mother and citizen of her culture that she's trying to stand up for. But I'm saying, where are the men? Why are they, sticking their tails between their legs and hiding behind this courageous woman? That's my biggest thing is there's no men left, and as Jonathan appointed, he told me which is true. And this is my biggest issue is you did have, I think, was it Hungary? What's his name? Orban, I think his name is
Viktor Orban.
Yeah, he came on. Kudos to him. But in reality, I think we need to see, from my coalition, we need to see men rise up and take on these things. The good news with her, I mean, I did hear that she did back the WEF in the past. Now, and then she ended up denouncing them. We just got to I haven't figured out yet. I haven't done the research to figure out which one came first. So if Italy went out and voted for her at large, it goes to show you that there's a gigantic pushback. They said that she got 4.5% of the votes in 2018. Well, what happened since then? 2020, and people have kind of started to wake up and realize, hey, globalism is not the answer for us. And if she's going to stand up against Schwab and those folks, kudos to her. Let her do what she needs to do. But young men need to rise up behind her and come after her and really finish the job and restore Italy to its rightful ownership, which is Christianity, in Europe as well. So, yeah, I mean, this is good news. You kind of see this battle. If we get enough people to fight the globalism, enough leaders. I know the WEF and the globalists really train and put their leaders in position so that when they want to push an agenda, it's putting legislation through the leader's country, and then the citizens have to bear it. But if we can get enough people to the right way, and Christ is going to do what he needs to do naturally. I think sometimes, I used to think, and that's probably still the case, that we need a divine intervention, kind of, Christ. We need a miracle in order for us to get back to where we need to get back to. But sometimes our Lord raises up leaders that we need. And again, I'm rooting for her and anybody else who can go against globalism.
Indeed. That's a good point. So, Jonathan, you've been to Italy recently. When I talk to political correspondents, they say it's not that big of a shock considering Salvini, if that's his name, the guy, he kind of shoved his foot through the door a couple of years ago and kind of made it known that this idea was potentially on the rise. But, you are a resident guy who just came back from there. How does this election look to you? Are you shocked, in going forward?
All right. Well, first of all, I mean, basically, Fawaz and Ryan have already hit on the key points. I'll just add one little comment that from long experience talking with Italians, especially traditional Italians, but then, I rode the bus everywhere most of my time when I lived there, or walked, and so got to talk to just the average people who are frustrated with immigration. So they found something there that resonated with Salvini. But there's something that Meloni has said that has set them off in a way that is even actually way more than they went off when Salvini was getting so much popularity. And I think that's because she sees the root of neoliberalism at its core. So I stuck in a link there that maybe Steve can get in the notes afterward. But it's there you go, from the European Conservative, a brilliant article by an Eastern European, but who I think nails it. That he basically puts it this way: all right, the modern Western state wants to convince us, it's maybe another paragraph or two down of this. In fact, maybe it's even right there where it was that the consumer is always right, and so it's stroking our pride. It's a way to make us feel so good about ourselves because, hey, we're the consumer. Consumer's always right, and if the goods are within my financial reach, all right, great for me. But then you think about it, what have they done if they're fanning the flames of your pride there? They are, as Meloni nailed it in that speech of hers that we heard in the second one that she gave, they want to make us the perfect slaves. Okay. And slaves, not to, because the Europeans have been through so many upheavals and revolutions in the past. You're not going to have someone come in and actually make them a slave yet. That it's not the time for the Chinese to come in and make them the perfect slaves in the ancient sense of the word yet. They had to be slaves of their passions. And so I think that Meloni, at least she's articulated that in a way that even Salvini did not. He's maybe assuming the best of Salvini. A few things he said made me think, okay, well, he understands that mass immigration is a way for them to basically get cheap help to keep the Italian economy going because they're not having kids. I think Meloni gets it. It's actually deeper than that. It is a spiritual thing, which she talks about. I mean, even if her personal life, has a lot to be desired, she talks about how the effects of neoliberalism, which includes a lot of modern day conservatism, is in effect a way to fan the flames of all the different vices, but especially of pride, so that we're made perfect slaves, but slaves to ourselves, to our passions, as Fawaz brings up so often. And here I think like that is really that's the jeu, that's the thing that's in play that has driven the Italian and the American elite absolutely bonkers, because if that message gets out, of the, or if people start watching the Corbett report about, the roots of modern day advertising and how they're trying to get us hooked on things and what's free is not actually free. I mean, you start going down that rabbit hole, and before you know it, you get a lot of people thinking, oh my word, I've been hoodwinked from the beginning. You start to get a lot more people questioning some basic assumptions. And I think she's said some things. She's dropped some truth bombs, kind of like Trump did. I don't think they hated Trump. They hated the fact that he said a few things that were just like, you can't say that because that's going to get people thinking, reflecting on the nature of things. And I think she's dropped some that even Trump would never drop, because Trump may have maybe instinctively thought about some of the things that she said, but she's actually articulate, and has thought about it. And I think her experience before, I mean, people say, oh, she was just a youth minister before, basically the minister of the youth in the Italian government, coordinating political activities for the youth. I think it showed her that the unrest among Italian youth, which is there. Let me tell you, that's one thing I picked up on the Italian people, because what do they have to look forward to? I mean, it's just like, spare hookups here and there. There's just no sense of go and start a big family. I mean, that is so much more unheard of in Italy than it is here. Even out in the countryside, I mean, just wouldn't believe it. So I think I'm kind of passionate about it because I love Italy so much. And lived there for 10 years of my life. So I really hope that these truth bombs she's dropped will get the Italian people thinking and maybe make a turnaround. I know mathematically they say it's not possible to make the kind of demographic turnaround they need, but morally and spiritually with God, anything's possible. So I have high hopes based on a few of the things she said that things are going in the right direction at least.
So Steve, is she the real deal, or is she a WEF plant?
Ryan Christian had a great line. He goes, talking about voting, like how we've talked about how all elections are rigged. Don't know if it's rigged or not. Could be, could not be, because could be legit. I have no idea. We'll see down the road, obviously. He was talking about, I guess, being cynical. I kind of think, I don't know. It's hard to, it's because she is a Zionist. She is for the Israel state, and that's like everyone else. You're not going to find anybody else. So is she perfect? No, obviously we're never going to find the perfect one. It's great that she's also an Italian exit. That raised my eyebrows. Like, heck yeah, that's, we need more of those exit type. Brexit, Italian exit, get out of the EU. That's great for the Italians, obviously. I think Ryan and Jonathan has had everything down on this, because obviously I've never been to Italy. My family hails from Naples, my mom's side, but I guess for my decentralization side of me, it'd be nice to break up Italy into back to the Republic of Naples and things like Venice and things like that. Because after, as that article brought up, it said French Revolution, as Livingston brings up, is after that was when all the centralized land masses and these national identities started coming out. When she brought up the Italian thing, what was going on in Italy when I think Jonathan was out of Lake Garda. Is it Lake Garda? Garda?
Yep, that's it. Yep, that's it.
I didn't want to butcher the pronunciation on it. They had a big parade or something, a festival, and Paul Joseph Watson talked about this. There was a gigantic, basically a rape job by all the migrants, which is raping everybody, and the cops weren't doing anything. And so the immigrant thing, people are getting fed up about that. You talk about the slavery part. Well, what's going on with the digital currency? Those guys have been pushing back. Was it a month or two ago? You had the taxi drivers up in arms in Rome and I think it was Naples, maybe it wasn't, protesting about the digital currency and the digital passports. Europe is all in on this. They're the first ones to go in this. Italy they were killing them off at the beginning of the whole pseudo pandemic. Anyways, they had that big thing with all the old people. I forget what region that was. I think it was connected to the Pachamama land. I think it was, if I'm not mistaken. The food crisis. You talk about slaves. How you control the population. You control the food. You control the food. They see what's going on. They're a target for the WEF and the Agenda 2030, which is the opening. How many times you saw 2030 and 2050 in that little montage right there? And there's plenty of more of that coming. The energy crisis that's probably coming down the pipe. That they see what's going on in Spain and Germany. The people, they're not stupid out there. They see what's going on. I saw a couple of Italians just excited that she was voting, hopeful and just jacked that it wasn't the other guy, which we would be too if somebody like that, I guess, would run in our areas. I would be if someone in North Carolina was running like that. Yeah, maybe we can get rid of the bathroom bill and other stupid things like that. Get back to some kind of virtue. How many times you hear somebody, screaming, I want, parent one and parent two get rid of. I'm mom and dad and I'm for Christianity and things like that. That's not common to see. It kind of reminds almost in a Belloc sense, picking up the rosary and go, I'm a Catholic. If you don't like it, go pound sand type deal. We need some of this. Fawaz said, where's the men? Maybe it's strategy too on that. Just throwing it out there that if it was a guy, they would have thrown everything at him. Misogynist. He's doing this. He's just like, he's running through the mud. It's hard to do that to a woman. So maybe that's a strategy. Hey, we'll run her out here. She can do this without them going after her as much, even though everyone and their brother is calling her a fascist, which show me where, pro-family, pro not killing babies and all that is fascism. They're still saying it to the day. There was a guy earlier today, the neo-fascist Georgiana. How is that fast? Even the person sitting at home that has no clue about that you're being lied to has to go scratch their hair going, I'm not buying this. But they keep pumping that out. I guess it's just keep saying it until people start believing it.
If she's a fascist, I'll switch my anarchist colors overnight and call myself a fascist.
That's right.
If that's what it is, then I'll take it. But
right, Viva
really
Italia in that regard.
We changed definitions of women. Might as well change that too.
Right? But Italy, it would be great to see like a breakup of this monstrosity that is the Italian state, born out of French principles. Italians never been sold on it, actually. Even way back when they started, the Roma dialect became, officially it was supposed to be the Florentine dialect, but really it's the way they spoke in Rome for the most part. Pop being the Florentine dialect, it became the main language in Italy that they wanted to push. So people went to school and learned the main dialect. They came home and spoke the normal thing. The dialects never went away like they did in other countries, and they've tried those kind of centralizations. So Italians are generally big, and I'm from, Milan. I'm not Italian. I'm Milanese. I'm from Sicily. I'm from wherever that's the identity is where they're from, generally speaking, more so than being Italian. Italian's more of like a cultural reality. That's always been the case in Italy. But as much as they'll talk about Kingdom of Naples, and there's people there that say, yeah, it wasn't so bad under Naples compared to the Roma government, right? At the same time, nobody's got the political will to actually disentangle and completely dismantle the political reality of Italy since 1870. Nobody really wants to do it. And that's the problem, is in spite of all the talk, it is a lot of talk, nobody wants to get out there and do it.
It warms my heart hearing that people are still like that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They think it, but nobody wants to make it happen.
Well, the thing is, I have a theory that I've been pushing for a while. And Steve says it warms his heart that people are still out there. The whole thing with the WEF's plan and their nice little booklets and all the things that they have out there, it assumes that people are going to cooperate from zero to bug eating or zero to pod living. That's just not human nature. Human beings will find the biggest, baddest bully they can find to protect their resources when people start to get hungry, when people start, and I know this doesn't seem like it now, but things go very bad very quickly. And when they do, everybody's going to find their strong man. You can think that the Republican Party tried that in 2016 with Trump because he was kind of a bull in a china shop and they drained the swamp and and all this other stuff. You kind of look at Viktor Orban in Hungary. He to the left, he is a strong man, but what is he doing? He's pro-Hungary. You know, he's all about inside and then moving out, trying to raise the birth rate. People, and I think Maloney is another example of people in a country finding the strong man or strong woman in her case, because I don't want to misgender her. As these things continue to roll, you'll see more and more countries abandon the fluffy WEF nonsense when they can't feed their citizens, when they can't heat homes. I know the WEF has their nice chalkboard of all the things that's going to happen. Human nature has a funny way of pushing back on those things pretty quick. And so that's my that's what I have a feeling when you start to see these things jump in. Yeah, John, jump in.
Well, Rick, I think you nailed it too, and it kind of brings us back to Fawaz's initial point as we were talking about with the lack of men. The rubber is probably going to meet the road at some point because it can get pretty cold in Italy, even in Rome. Trust me. If gas were to be cut off, would the men probably more than anybody else? Dr. Anthony Esolen writes about this. The diverse natures of man and woman, and especially more in the last few years, he's been writing a lot about this. Men typically go out there and do the dirty jobs that women either would never want to do in a million years or just simply can't do physically. All right. Because the average woman is never going to be strong enough to do some of the things that we men need to buckle up and do. So when it gets to a time of actual suffering, I mean, actual hunger for a large number of Italians, freezing cold in the winter, and it's not just a matter of sticking on a coat, but you got to go to bed in this. Are they going to be willing to sacrifice to do this? If there's not the warmth in the house anymore. So I think that's where, with all due respect for women who do so many things that we men would never want to do in a million years, and in a certain sense, psychologically and otherwise, are not fit to do in the house. Are we men going to be ready to do that? I think that's going to be the question right there for Italy.
What do you mean, John? We're not going to have 42,000 linemen, female linemen, go fix Florida right now? They're going to go up in the, going to put on their packs and scale the stuff to fix everything.
Rick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, jump in.
No, that I saw a video. Somebody, I think it was a shark or something, had somebody was drowning, and then you see. Oh no, I think it was like some plane that had landed in more front of the ocean, and all you see men just going, just running, trying to help out. Just men. That's in our nature. Listen, human nature is fixed, and you could try. The WF's been trying to do for decades. You could try to bend that rubber band as much as you want. Eventually, it's gonna snap back, and we see these things happen throughout history. Things just sort of, the natural law sort of just corrects itself, and then we start over and rebuild. But to go back to Steve's point about the whole fascist right wing,
right there.
that's hilarious. I saw that. But to go back to Steve's point, Steve made a great point. Now, first of all, they don't call the Biden regime ultra left, even though it is, but they'll call somebody like her ultra right. If they keep using these words, they dilute these words, then they don't mean anything anymore. So let them continue using these words. They're just diluting them. And then all of a sudden, the definition of ultra right is pro family and pro life. And folks will be like, well, if that's what I am, that's what I am.
Yeah. That's the lines are being drawn in that regard to what sides. They're becoming clearer and clearer and clearer, and I'm glad for that. Let's get all that out of the way. And I appreciate John with a perfect segue, as we will, talking about energy and that would be Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2. Apparently, like Sharknado hit it, or whatever the case may be, and now there's a problem there. So let's take a look.
Let's go back to a couple months ago.
Yeah, take
Let
us
me
on a
answer
trip,
the
Steve.
first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
With regard to Nord Stream 2, we continue to have very...
If anybody remembers her, she was involved with the whole putting Zelensky in back when
Do
it was
the
in the
horizontal
early 90s.
mambo with the EU. You know,
Yeah.
the EU might object. Well, screw them.
But cool. Oh yeah.
And she kept her hair about the same.
Strong and clear conversations with our German allies, and I want to be
Luland.
clear with you today.
Allies
If
and
Russia
sneer quotes.
invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream
Allies
2
like these, who
will
needs enemies?
not move.
For Vladimir Putin, you would have
As
to be a
Kissinger said.
suicidal moron to blow up your own energy pipelines. That's the one thing you would never do. Natural gas pipelines are the main source of your power and your wealth, and most critically, your leverage over other countries. Europe needs your energy, now more than ever with winter approaching. If you can't deliver that energy, then countries like Germany have no need to pay attention to what you want. You're in the middle of a war, an all-hands-on-deck war, so you need all the leverage you can get. Under these circumstances, there is no chance you would blow up Nord Stream 1 or 2. Not now, obviously. In fact, it's so obvious that even our famously dim Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, seemed to acknowledge it. Sabotaging Nord Stream, he said today, is, quote, clearly in no one's interest. Right, but really only half right. It is true that blowing up Nord Stream does not help Vladimir Putin. He would not do that. Why would he? But that doesn't mean that other countries wouldn't consider doing it. They would consider it, and we know they have considered it because at least one of them has said so in public. In early February, less than 3 weeks before the war in Ukraine began, Joe Biden suggested on camera that he might take out these pipelines. Watch.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
How will you do that
Shoot a torpedo at it, you dummy.
since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
We're going to put a bunch of dynamite
Notice
on
how he
Flipper.
phrased that. And he's the president. Doesn't phrase things by accident, particularly when he's reading off cards. He didn't say, I will pause the delivery of gas from Russia to Germany. He said, there won't be a Nord Stream 2. We'll put an end to it. We'll take it out. We'll blow it up. How will you do this? He was asked. I promise you we will be able to do it. They thought this through. And yet those watching, very much including us, didn't take Biden seriously when he said it. This is the president who has declared climate change the most pressing emergency in the history of the world. This is the man who lectures you about using a wood stove or driving an SUV because of its emissions. This is the guy who spent billions trying to mitigate cow flatulence because
You know, it's historically, it is not outside the purview of these United States of Amazon to push another country into a war. Remember the embargo around Japan, making sure they didn't have enough oil, forcing them to strike at Pearl Harbor. I'm sorry if you've never heard of that, but that's definitely there. So out of every country in the world, everybody's looking at the U.S. going, that's kind of your MO more than anybody else's. What do you think, Ryan?
Well, the Polish government actually itself acknowledged American interference, American agency in the destruction of Nord Stream 2, and because really, when you ask the question, cui bono, the Germans don't benefit because they have no backroom place to go to when they start their electric bills start going in the hundreds of millions of euros. The Russia certainly doesn't benefit because they don't have a customer. There's only one entity, or maybe two, that benefit, and that's the United States and the United Kingdom. Those are the only two that actually benefit, because the fact is, already in Europe, you see electric bills going up. Where with even in Italy, I was going to mention in the last segment that there are dairies now trying to supply milk. That their electric bills are going from like 500,000 euros to almost €1 million. And so in Germany, there actually have been backroom discussions with the Russians about ways to get get oil through Nordstrom for the winter. And the Russians have made certain overtures to them. I don't know the nature of what those specific things were. I just know the discussion happened, and that's why this happened. Because for the Biden policy, which isn't really Biden, it's whoever's controlling him. It actually needs Nord Stream to not be an option for the Germans. That way, they cannot defect from the NATO plan, as it were. They have to go along, and no matter how much it's going to hurt their people, because the people in Washington really don't care about other people, especially if they're white. But even if they're black, you saw under Obama, they really don't care that much either. So as long as they're getting what they want out of things, and so I mean, the destruction of Nord Stream is very clearly either American or British action, one way or the other. There's really no way around it.
Absolutely, in that regard. Fawaz, the natural steps that this is taking is just being shuttled by the U.S. The U.S. pushed the Russians into fighting back by violating every treaty they had agreed with since the fall of the Soviet Union. Russia has announced that tomorrow they're going to have a big ceremony where the 4 disputed territories are going to be officially brought into Russia. So Russia's playing for keeps, and meanwhile, we got middling Joe who has to have Jezebel Jill tell him which side of the stage to go to, is letting the quiet part out loud. You're going to blow up Nord Stream 2 when tanks go this, that, and the other way. They're the only ones, Fawaz, pushing for war in a place they do not actually have any claim to. That the United States is not in Europe, yet here we are pushing war in Europe.
Yeah, and spending American tax dollars doing it. If you think about how much Americans' families have worked throughout decades, and only to pitch into a federal government that has unlimited funds, only to then have some bureaucrats get to decide where that money goes, and then they're pushing for. I don't know too much about the situation for me to give an analysis. All I know in a more of a Christian understanding of it, the heart of the people. Unfortunately, folks are going to suffer because of this this coming winter. Joe doesn't care. He's going to be nice and comfortable. And the U.S. is going to be fine as far as this winter goes. But unfortunately, the people of Europe are going to suffer. So, I don't know too much about it for me to give a good analysis of it. And I just hope that we don't push Putin to such a degree to where he's going to retaliate in a big way, because nobody wins in the war. Russia versus U.S. or nobody wins that war. We all lose. But I will say this: Trump did warn the Germans during his speech. They laughed at him. Well, he might have had some insight and might have known some stuff that maybe should have taken a little more serious. I don't think Putin would have gone in if Trump was president. So I do put a lot of the blame in the Biden administration.
That's a great point there. That Trump even went on social media and said, "I'll send me over there right now. I'll go mediate between the two of them," showing that no matter how whacked out the guy was, the guy truly doesn't. He's not a warmongering psychopath that we have there now. John, the tensions are rising between the two. As we talked about with Italy, the prospect of energy shortages is now, for lack of a better term, confirmed. It went from, hey, you might freeze this winter, to like, half of y'all ain't making it out of this, because we literally, you could fill tankers full of natural gas and put them on a boat here and send them to Europe, and it wouldn't make a difference at this point, because whoever did this, not like the U.S. Navy wasn't practicing, kind of near where Nord Stream was, ironically enough. People are now suffering for weak men. The hard times, weak men make hard times. We are suffering through weak men right now.
Yeah, and the only thing that you guys know, I'm not one who has, been waving a blue and yellow flag over the last few months. So far from wanting to take Russia's side on anything here, but one of you put it well, like cui bono, like for whose benefit. And I'm just still taking Putin at his word, and his past as authentic, that he was a WEF boy himself, at least. So I don't know. As I certainly am not saying the U.S. and/or, as Ryan rightfully points out, because they've had their hand in so much of this throughout the last few decades. They're not under the thumb as maybe people think they are. The UK as well. Not trying to exculpate them, but I think we ought to at least consider that Russian oligarchs, just like Ukrainian oligarchs, just like American and British oligarchs, they don't care about the destruction of innocent human life, and the misery and the suffering of people. So Russian oligarchs aren't going to suffer from this. Their money, I think, is not going to be interminably harmed by this either. So I don't know. I certainly hold out some how should I say, some doubt. That it's merely an act of American / British aggression. So I don't know. And I know none of you guys actually said that. I'm not trying to caricature what you said either, but I certainly, together with Tucker, it'd be hard to figure out what Russia would have to gain from it. But just, I don't know, knowing the way the WEF works in these backhanded ways, maybe it's part of their lowering the population ploy in some manner. I mean, Russia's still going after mRNA vaccine production, new production of mRNA vaccines. They obviously don't love the local Russians, the folks there in power who are in the know. So I don't know. There's still, I think, a lot to be learned here. Certainly, I don't think this happened without American knowledge, but I wonder who all else was okay with it. Because yes, many millions of are lost in the sea there, natural gas. But I mean, Russia's got so much. I don't think they're going to be incredibly hurt by it either in the long run. I don't know. There's still a lot to find out, I think. So I'm holding off a little bit of judgment till I find out more.
No, that's a good point. Steve, is this just a WEF side job at this point? Because John brought that up. Both, everybody who's doing this, everybody who are in the driver's seats at this point, it does accomplish their goals, albeit a different way, but still it gets them to where they want to be.
Yeah, I mean, you can also throw in that we brought up a couple months ago, Germany. They told them that you need to come out with cities that can produce heat for people because it's going to be a cold winter because they won't have the energy for it. Wear extra clothing, wear extra blankets, go in these little areas in the city to stay warm. So the heating problem was already going down at the beginning of this. This just cranks it up to another level. And as Jonathan brought up, yes, Russia is involved in WEF. That was when they basically got excommunicated when they, in the military experiment, whatever they were doing with Ukraine, and they just kind of like, TV thing. All right, we'll punish them by slapping their hand a little bit. They're still in on it. What's his face has that blog. I haven't posted it in a while. He keeps on saying, he's like Jonathan saw, they're in on the pandemic. They're doing the jabs. They're doing all that stuff. The same thing that everyone else is doing, they're doing, or a step ahead of. They're doing the digital currency. They're doing all that. So again, it's, as Carlin said, it's a big club and y'all ain't in it. And what Ryan, I can't remember anything since the bioweapon got me a couple weeks ago. I'm thinking Ryan. I'm going, what the heck's his name? I can't even remember my daughter's name right now. Anyways, when he was talking about the Polish prime minister, here's the tweet.
The defense minister tweeted, "Thank you, USA," with a picture of the roiling, bubbling gas up from the sea that I just mentioned. Poland's prime minister, meanwhile, laid the blame, of course, on Russia for targeting the pipeline, suggesting the attack was an attempt to escalate the Ukraine conflict, saying, quote, "We do not know the details of what happened yet, but we can clearly see that it's an act of sabotage, an act that probably marks the next stage in the escalation of this situation in Ukraine."
Here's Kit Knightley's article, Forget the Blame Game, Nordstrom Sabotage is about the Great Reset and nothing else. There's George, this is a Twitter thing handle, biggest winners, USA, 1, Greece, and that's what Tucker is up saying. US is number 1 on that, Greece, Norway, Poland, Ukraine, and the losers are Germany and Russia. So it would be hard pressed to say that the U.S. wasn't involved in this somehow. Obviously, anybody knows anything, they know that wasn't just a natural occurrence what happened, and also the coincidence of this opened the exact was it 2 days ago, the 27th, so the day of.
In a move that Europe hopes will ease its energy crisis, leaders have inaugurated a new pipeline delivering gas from Norway to Poland. The Polish Prime Minister was joined by counterparts from Denmark and Norway, as well as EU representatives. It comes at a convenient time, as Europe is trying desperately to find new energy sources, and after Denmark and Sweden's discovery of a massive leak on the Nord Stream pipeline.
Today we are entering a new era, an era of energy sovereignty, of energy freedom.
So again, what a coincidence. And notice what he said, a new era. We've heard that before.
And of enhanced security, one of energy security, and also of security in the broader sense of the word.
This completion comes at a time of Russia's brutal war against Ukraine and Russia's manipulation of gas supplies to destabilize our energy market and our economies. So today, we in Europe together are sending a powerful message that Russia will not succeed.
The project, which has been completed ahead of time, is an extension of an existing pipeline that will benefit mainly Poland, but also neighbouring states. Polish gas company PGNiG.
So just one incredible coinky-dink that happened. In geopolitical things, it's going to be massive. I mean, either U.S. just did an act of war and there's something bigger coming down the pipe, or this was a complete accident.
Yep. Ryan, one more thing.
Yeah, when I spoke earlier, I didn't mean to say Putin good and U.S. bad, obviously, but I think they're both bad. And Putin is a tyrant, but he doesn't want to be a poor tyrant. And the way, with these things like the World Economic Forum and such, it's not one guy, it's not Klaus Schwab or anyone else at the top saying, yeah, this is the way it's going to happen. There's negotiating and wheeling and dealing in the back room. And the same thing is like Russia, for whatever role it's playing in the WEF plan, without a doubt, this benefits the WEF agenda, the Great Reset agenda. I don't have any doubts about that whatsoever. But in terms of the control of resources, because we know the guys at the top are going to be enjoying all those resources that we are not when we own nothing and are supposed to be happy. And the same thing for average Europeans, too. They are not going to be enjoying the resources that their political class is going to be enjoying when they own nothing and are happy. But ultimately, this action, I think, again, the U.S. really is the biggest beneficiary of the whole thing. That's why I wouldn't be surprised if it was an American agency in it. I'm fairly certain it was. Not because of the classic, Russia bad and U.S. good attitude of the neocons, but rather because it just, let's cut off that pipeline, now create something we control, and then everyone's got to play ball. So I think they're getting ready for political unrest. And it could be you have a revolution of sorts, you have political revolution of some kind, I don't know. And they say, hey, we need to get that Nord Stream reactivated. Now that's not going to happen. Instead, your only option is this other pipeline, which again they control, and will shut off when they need to save the planet or whatever kind of nonsense they've got. So, I mean, it's like I said, Putin is not the good guy, but he's also not the fake Dr. Evil that the media wants you to believe. Also,
All right. Yeah, I think I'm still on mute. No, I'm not on mute.
I
All
got to
right.
run. I got to go to the Catholic Identity Conference, and so I got to drive ahead of me.
Thank you for hanging out with us, Ryan. Drive safe.
Take care.
All right. So that's let's move on to the last big topic here on News from the Pew. The three of us will discuss, and that is Hurricane Ian and its impact on Florida, and the fact that we just couldn't get those votes in, Steve and Fwaz, in time to get those bills passed to just save us from these hurricanes. Right, Amy Klobuchar? Tell us.
You've got leaders in Congress like Senator Schumer and Speaker Pelosi, as well as their Republicans that want to work with them, where we have been able to step by step push these bills through. And so I think so many times people counted us out, but we want to make clear we've got the backs of the American people. And while we have clear disagreements, we don't want, if the Republicans take charge, a number of them have been talking about an abortion ban. You guys know that. You featured on the show. That's why we've got to win this midterm. We just did something about climate change for the first time in decades. That's why we've got to win this as that hurricane bears down on Florida. We got to win in the midterms. We understand that, but none of that has stopped us from deciding we're going to put our differences aside and get some things done. That is what that vote is today in the Rules Committee, where you're going to see a strong bipartisan support, a very good hearing for changes.
The quote from Governor DeSantis about climate change. Quote, I am not in the pews of the church of the global warming leftists. This is what he thinks about climate change. And now his state is getting hit with one of the worst hurricanes that they will ever see.
Perhaps he
We're calling the storm of a lifetime. The Washington Post has a feature on why Florida is more prone to hurricanes, and it's got a lot to do with the state's unique geography. As the paper points out, more than 41% of hurricanes in the United States have made some sort of landfall in Florida. The state juts into warm tropical waters directly in the paths of storms barreling through the Caribbean.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes, how it's always been. This just in, Florida is in the Caribbean and it's warm. So that's
I wonder why they have hurricane insurance down there.
they could have paid me $200,000 out of that study, and I would have told them that it would have been fine. They would have been more than happy to do so. But the real big thing, Fwaz, is that the left can never let a crisis go to waste, as we say. It's a Cat 4, Cat 5 hurricane bearing down on Florida. What should the message be? Hey, I hope everybody is safe. If other people are standing by. No, DeSantis bad. I saw tweets that are like, why didn't Hurricane Ian blow away Mar-a-Lago? It's always it's whatever the topic is, Fwaz. It's an outlet for their hate and their absolute disregard for people like us.
Yeah, I mean, this is coming from the most sophisticated, kind-hearted, tolerant society we've ever seen. It's funny because I can even go back to when we're talking about the left. We can go back to the fact that they keep breaking down statues and canceling this person, that person from 200 years ago, because that person's moral standards at that time don't fit with the left's moral standards of today. And we're talking about the moral standards of people who think that a child should be killed in the womb up to 9 months. All you're doing, there's no difference between you and the barbarians. The only difference is you get to drink tea with your pinky up because you're more sophisticated. But in your heart of hearts, there's great vile and evil, and it's hard to see when folks are suffering, losing their homes. Their message is, see, that's because your governor doesn't believe in global warming. Like, DeSantis has been around for 50 years. They had these hurricanes before DeSantis was there. It's just their way to rile up their base. They want to talk about the midterms. You take every poll across the country, and I've seen these polls. What do Americans care about the most? And it's always based on family. We want to be able to keep our streets and our homes safe. We want to be able to feed our families. We want gas to be lower so we can get to work to feed our families. It's all based on families. But no, They have their little crazy base that they've created, and they got to galvanize that base to get their coalition, and they want to put abortion and climate change in the front so that they can come back and win the midterms. Well, you're not listening. It's like, when sometimes when you have the Vatican or the bishops and some dioceses have a listening session, and all the youth show up and say, we want tradition, and they've already have this pre-drawn up document and say, well, we heard the youth. They want more HGTV community. So this is the problem with the left. And I'll make one more point, and I think Steve will appreciate this. It was a lot easier to scare people to lock down due to COVID because they didn't want their family members to get sick. Now, I don't agree with the lockdowns because it did more harm than good, but it's a lot easier for you to tell someone, stay home so you don't kill grandma. It's going to be a lot harder, and trust me, a lot harder to convince even their own base, because they don't do it, they're hypocrites, to convince them, you got to stay home because we got to heal the earth. The only way you could do it is by force. And that's where the digital stuff comes in.
Yep. He's right, Steve. That's the whole thing is climate change. You and I have talked about it. You talked about it in this show. You talked about it on Clown Planet. COVID was just a setup for climate change.
Yep, it was the pre-run for it. And then before I get into the response for it, just in. Hey, we just gave another $12.3 billion to Ukraine. Crank up the printing press. All right, so flashback. Remember this?
That once the public will be open to it, we're going to start focusing mainly on climate, like global warming, and like that's going to be our next this could be our focus. Our focus was to get Trump out of office, right? Without saying it, that's what it was, right? So our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
So they've been saying it. We've known this was coming. I mean, here's you seen Don Lemon? Where's it at right here? I know.
This is what it is. That's so good.
Here you can actually see, pretty interesting for your viewers, you can actually see a second eye wall forming around the inner eye wall, and that's basically the second eye wall has overtaken the original eye wall, and that should arrest development.
So listen, I'm just trying to get you said you want to talk about climate change, but what effect does climate change have on this phenomenon that is happening now? Because it seems these storms are intensifying. That's the question here.
I don't think you can link climate change to any one event. Okay. On the whole, on the cumulative, climate change may be making storms worse, but to link it to any one event, I would caution against that.
Okay. Well, listen, I grew up there, and these storms are intensifying. Something is causing them.
Yeah, you grew up in Key West. Nobody cares.
So this storm is it's a massive one. Its effects are also being felt in the summer.
I mean, before this guy, who's a sportscaster, before I put him on, yeah, I grew up. There was years that Florida didn't get a hurricane, and then you got these people saying this is the worst hurricane in 100 years. Where have you heard that before? How many times I said that in this episode? Where have you heard that before? Where have you heard that before? They said that about the cold 2 years ago when they scared you that the flu was bad. Worst pandemic in 100 years. All of a sudden, worst hurricane in 100 years. And I asked Jonathan earlier today, how was it in your area? He goes, man, it was a nothing burger. Yeah, sure. Venice, Punta Gorda, you got some there. I think they're flooded up to the windows. That happens. It's Florida. You're built for that. You know that's coming. You just get ready for that. You don't move there going, you know what? It's going to be like Kansas.
Well, speaking of Kansas, it's
pastor.
Ian is coming. Ian's here. John, we just felt a marked increase in wind speeds within the last 10 minutes or so. We were riding about 40, 50 miles an hour. It was hard to fathom that speed tripling in the next few hours, but we're now getting maybe 70-mile-an-hour gusts here. We're right at the point where US 43 heads across the Peace River here. I'm just in front of the memorial for Hurricane Charlie, which in 2004 devastated this town and sent a wake-up call to this community about the threats of living on the coast in a rapidly warming planet. As a result of that storm, they were the first community in Florida to put in a climate adaptation plan, a sea level coastal resiliency plan that they're, have been working on for years now, and this will be the test. It's hard to build power lines or building codes for 17-foot storm surge, though. That's the crazy variable here right now. No one has ever seen that, so we don't know what that looks like. But this is exactly what climate scientists have been warning about for.
This is my favorite. This is my favorite by far. I don't know if you ever seen it. This is great.
The smog-filled cities and poor harvest are being seen by some environmentalists as signs of climate change. Let's now cross live to London to discuss this with Piers Corbyn. He's an astrophysicist and also founder of Weather Action. Good to have you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us live there in London. So what we're seeing here is a drastic change in climate, aren't we?
Well, climate has always been changing, but this has nothing to do with man. In fact, we predicted that there would be extreme heat in East Europe and Russia this summer. And it's caused by a certain circulation pattern. CO2 does not cause circulation patterns. What causes those is a combination of solar activity and the state of the phases of the moon.
But hang on, Piers, excuse me, just a minute. You say this isn't caused by man. How come they're reporting this heat wave is recognised as the worst in 1,000 years of recorded history in Russia? And surely
of course,
man has got something to do with this, hasn't he?
No. Nothing to do with it. The only connection is man is here at the same time as the sun and the moon are doing things. You see, a very similar situation happened about 132 years ago, where there was the same sun, earth, lunar, magnetic states. There was heat waves in Russia, and there were also floods in Pakistan as now. And in the previous few years, there was also floods in the English summers, also 132 years ago. So these things are dictated by solar activity in the moon. They're nothing to do with mankind, and those who say that are just trying to make money out of carbon.
But are we not going to see this? Are we not going to see this again next year, the year on? I mean, it's quite recent that
that's a very interesting question. These things do come in bursts, and we're working on that very question, those forecasts. We did say there would be a series of wet summers in England, for example, which we've had. Now, will there be a series of these very hot summers in Russia? We don't know. We have to work on that. But I assure you, it's nothing to do with carbon dioxide. And if you stop driving around Moscow, it won't affect next summer one jot.
Well, how come then so many climate change scientists disagree with you and they get so much support for what they say?
They're on a gravy train, for heaven's sake. They're mate.
On the gravy train. Here's a little link of all the stuff. 66, oil gone for 10 years. 67, just look at it. Ice age by 2000, 1970. Yep. Wow. New ice age coming 2020, 2030, 2070, new ice age. Oil depleted in 20 years, 72. We had oil. Acid rain kills life in lakes, 1980.
Keep oil.
Children won't know what snow is, 2000. So just super hurricanes. Arctic will be ice-free by 2018. UK Prime Minister, here's the 50 days to save the planet from catastrophe. So it's all a scam, but we buy into this nonsense. And what is Bill Gates the other day comes out saying, we got to get rid of cows because the methane. He goes, methane, it's terrible for the environment. That's the main thing that kills everything. So what we got to do? We got to kill cows. Why do we got to kill cows? Oh, so we can eat Gates' own food, the Impossible Burgers and things like that, which he actually says afterwards, yeah, I invested in this. So you're making that guy more money by eating things that are unhealthy, unnatural, all for this whole scam of climate. You know what? I'm trying not to get us kicked off because that's the new censorship. It's not the Rona anymore. Now it's if you misspeak about climate, you get kicked off. I mean, Dr. Sam Bailey has a good thing on bugs. Should we eat the bugs? Go check it out. It's Dr. Sam Bailey YouTube channel. She's great on this stuff. And she brings up this whole idea, this whole cow thing. There's plenty of land for cows, and she's in New Zealand. They got like 5 million cows there. The United States has, she had like 40 million cows or something like this. It's not methane from the cows. And then on top of that, if they get you to eat these bugs, they got parasites in the shells of this thing. So it's just going to make you sicker on this to eat this stuff. Again, you're not supposed to be eating things. That's the poor nations. And it goes back to what is communism? Everything communism. We got to get everything equal. equally poor, which be coming up with a show with Father. I just went stupid. Father Carney on the Holy Face in an hour or two, which again, direct link from communism. We're seeing the global communist takeover in rapid time. One of the tenets or commandments, I thought it was very interesting. This is from Fulton Sheen's book, Communism and the Conscience of the West. Number one is from he says the 10 Commandments, Communist Commandments published for Polish use and first issued by the Soviet headquarters in Novosibirsk in Soviet Siberia. One, never forget the clergy is the declared enemy of the state and of communism. Number two, try to convert your friends to communism. You read these top 10. That's what we saw the last couple of years. Turn your neighbors in if they don't accept it. You got to convince your parents. You got to do this. We're watching this in real time, and only a few are calling us out. There was a priest that just gave a sermon warning his flock about the digital currency. Fantastic. We need more of that because this, just like in Italy, we've got to get people engaged on this. I just saw there's another guy running for a school board locally here in Charlotte for I think it's Charlotte School District 1. And he's got tired of it. So he's running for office like that. We need more of that because, again, if you break away, which I got a podcast coming with Dr. Tom Woods in a couple weeks on secession and national divorce, just to get the Catholic people involved in it. Because I get guys all the time, well, we can't do that. I might not get my money for military and all that. I might not get my Social Security, which Tom talks about it. You go to Philippines, become a Filipino citizen, you still get that money.
You're an expat. You can be an expat, yeah.
Yeah, two, is it worth it for your kids to say, you know what, I needed to get that while we're crumbling to, hey, what we need to do is stay on the Titanic. Sure, it's hitting an iceberg, but we're fine. We just need that guy in Section D to give me $5. Yeah, we'll hit that Titanic. We'll hit that thing anyway. We could go now and be good. There's another boat over there we could go to maybe. But no, we got to wait. We got to wait. We got to make sure we get that $5 from guy in Section D, and then we're going to hit that darn thing. And then, hey, we might as well sing the anthem while we're going down, and maybe we'll win gold for swimming. It's just the mindset is just ludicrous. Just break away. Every time I see this, I saw Dr. Kwasniewski's post something about the pro-life guy that got arrested. Everybody's going about the feds. I go, hey, I got a solution. If you get out, you say bye-bye to the FBI. How's that not resonating with anybody? I have no idea. But it's just something we just got to keep pounding away to get people's mindset. Decentralization. Like we brought up with Italy. How great would it be if that decentralized? It's just like states. All right, break away from the union. Illinois, you could break away from Chicago. You don't have to have Chicago in your state. New York, upstate, kick New York City, kick them out. You don't have to have them out. You could decentralize states in states, just like California been trying to do for a while. Colorado tried a couple years ago when I was out there, the Jeffersonian state that they were talking about in the north. Many just breakup. The breakup is good because it was like that before the French Revolution. We had decentralization everywhere. That's why you have like King St. Wenceslas. He wasn't the king of the entire continent. He was the king of the local area. And the Duke. That's why you have all these names. And it goes with the identity. What is a nation? Like we talked about last time, Rick. Fawaz, he's in an area. If he was in an area that everyone had the same area and different from me and different from Rick, those are three different nations. That's why they say the South is totally different from the Northwest. It's total different culture, total different thinking, mindset, people, and even language. The language of the Northeast is different from the language of the Southeast. It might be English, but it's different. Like Ryan was bringing up with the dialect in Italy. It's different. So difference, that's a qualification for nationalism. Nationalism is a good thing in that sense. And decentralization, it's with the people. It's your not creed, but it's your identity. I don't have anything identity-wise for somebody in Oregon or Boston or anything like that. Here, yes, people get along together. They live together. As much as they try to condemn the South to the third realm of hell, it's way more segregated, 180 degrees more segregated up north than back in those days, and it still is now. We go up to Cincinnati, there's a white block and a black block. Down here,
look what happened in Martha's Vineyard. As soon as they had anybody that was not white and with a hard R on the end of their name, they got those people straight out of there faster than you could say, immigrant. So that's how they work.
Yep. After they fed them Chris Bryce.
And everybody brings up the Republicans did all this. Is the radical Republicans back in the day that destroyed all this?
Yep, they did. They were big on the union, and they got their accomplishment. And because of that, now we have great leaders like Miss Kamala Harris, which is what we will we'll end our show with. Kamala, they don't know what to do with her. They've kept her under sequester for a while. Now they've just sent her to the other side of the world. The only problem is now she has to speak on the other side of the world, and then you get stuff like this where she's interacting with the U.S. military, and they're just kind of like, yeah, I don't know what to do with you, lady.
I got a two-parter for that for you.
Yep.
The United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. And it is an alliance that is strong and enduring. Real nice. And it's so close.
It's 50 meters away now. That's
right.
North Korea at
That's
the wood line.
That's it.
Go take a walk.
First of all, the South Koreans are like, bro, what are you talking about? We're still technically at war with the North, and now the United States, according to Kamala Harris, has now just signed a treaty with Kim Jong-un. And so I guess we're not driving Kias and Hyundais anymore since we're going to be boycotting the South. And then she's like, it literally was the same picture. We always made fun of Kim Jong-un with his binoculars and looking over there. Same thing. Same exact thing. So close. It's right there, man. I don't know why you're wearing. I don't know why
North Korea from my house.
But it's these are the people. This is the best we can do. George Carlin said it once. This is the best we can do at this point.
I can't wait for the memes. So when she puts the binoculars on, it's gonna be a different image. Oh, people are gonna have fun with that one.
Trump every single time.
It's gonna be
When I
hilarious.
see impeach Biden on trending for my English speaking people on Twitter, well, that's who you want to come in after him.
Yeah, that's why not. I mean, Biden got lost on the way to the podium at the FEMA place today, so it's not much better.
Did you see his handler trying to grab his tailcoat like this way?
It's totally.
He's off. He's gone. He's gone rogue. He's gone rogue.
Yeah, or he's looking for a dead congresswoman.
Dead congresswoman. Yeah. She's been dead for a year, Joe.
They exist.
Yeah, so there's not much else. Looks like we are coming to the end of News from the Pew. Do we have Cry Room and Saints this week, gentlemen?
I got one. You go ahead, Fawaz, if you want.
For my saint, I'm just gonna go with Saint Michael. I mean, how could you not?
I've agreed. We all have Saint Michael this week.
Saint Michael. Check. All right, I'm gonna speak to you guys directly. All right, listen up. Saint Michael's awesome, and I love his feast day. I moved to Kentucky. I have a little homestead now. All right. I had a grass-fed T-bone steak for lunch for St. Michael's feast day. Get out of the cities and go do likewise. And then my cry room is going to be Joy from the View. What's her name?
Yeah, Joy Behar.
Behar. Only reason is because again we go back to the hatred they have in their heart to such a degree that you can kind of share a gloat in the fact that, oh, this is bad for the country, but it's good for us because we might get DeSantis out or might make his approval ratings really bad. It's all about political. When you have Trump, when he did I watched this interview. I mean, no Trump fan here. We just definitely have a lot of criticisms, and he made a lot of mistakes. Not little, a lot. He did an interview with Hannity. And Hannity asked him, do you wish that Joe Biden would do well? And Trump said, even if he means it or not, he said directly, he says, I want him to do well for the sake of the country. It goes to show you the difference between the two. So she's in my cry room.
Just want to see him do well. That's it. Beautiful America. Just want to see it do well. And then in 2024, we'll MAGA. It'll be
On
great.
point.
It'll be good. Don't you
That's
worry.
on point. Yeah.
Steve, what do you got?
I'll go with a possible saint of the week. Well, who brought DeSantis? I'll put up DeSantis to see if he goes after the federal money or not. National emergency funds. If he doesn't, if he tells DC to go pound sand, my man. Hopefully he does, because a lot of people are calling him out on that, saying, he doesn't like this and that, but he'll do this. So if he says no to that in the next few days, huge, massive huevos for that in mad respect. My cry room, remember, I'm going to go with the Biden 12 September technocracy executive order that I put a lot of Clown Planet on last Saturday on. If you haven't seen it, go see it. You'll read it. It'll really happen. And no one's talking about it. Kind of like how the Nordstrom pipeline has gotten kind of like the back burner for the greatest hurricane of hurricanes that just hit Florida, and we're going to get a little rain out of it up in South Carolina. We're like, oh, North Carolina. I'm like, yeah, that's how we get our rain, guys. But this.
I'll give two examples. So
remember, for a while, just talked about eating meat.
One is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, "Wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it." I'm one of those, by the way. So here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about. So we have these intolerance to. For example, I have milk intolerance. And there's some people.
Nobody has milk intolerance. You have milk intolerance to the bad milk. If you drank raw milk, you have no intolerance.
People are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat.
Over my old dead body.
So that's something that we can do.
And stuff like that is in that executive order that they pushed in. Was it the 29th? How many days is that ago? Let's do the math. It's on the 12th. I mean, nobody is talking about it. It just blows my mind that literally came down the pipe, and that could really screw up a lot. Again, break away. Hey, we're done with that. But if something like that's my cry room, the Biden executive order. And people, you got to start paying attention to what this is, and that is a scary thing that he just pushed with a sign of his pen that previous presidents signed, almost kind of like set it all up, and the next guy pulls the trigger.
Right.
I'm not absolving Trump in this. He's part of that whole succession of people, and the executive orders. How many Trumpers were jacked? Hey, he signed this executive order. Well, it's okay. It's not just okay when they do it. It's okay when you do it only. When you do it, they're going to do it. That's what Graham's doing right now with the abortion thing, and that's going to go back to the thing. And Biden's already trying to push a pro-death thing that constitutes to codify abortion in all 50 states. I don't want to say we told you so. We told you so. That's coming down the pipe, pro-lifer. So now what are you going to do when that happens?
Yeah, absolutely.
One more message, if you guys don't mind.
Everyone?
For Kentucky. If you're listening to this and you're in Kentucky, abortion is on the ballot this November. Just like in Kansas, we are a trigger state, but it's actually on the ballot. And if we pass, and the same group that was in Kansas have raised $3 million here in Kentucky. They're trying to codify abortion into the state constitution. If we can defeat it, which I think we have a great chance of doing so, it'll be illegal to have an abortion in Kentucky, and you cannot appeal to federal courts, mainly because of Roe's gone. So we have a great chance of absolutely making abortion illegal in Kentucky this November. So go out and vote. Excellent.
Hopefully that'll go that way. I'm gonna echo Fawaz, Saint Michael. Absolutely amazing saint. Everybody should learn the Saint Michael prayer in Latin or English. Just learn it and say it often. My cry room is going to be Lizzo for taking.
We will not play that video.
We will not play the video where she is handed James Madison's 1813 crystal flute and proceed. And she's a classically trained flutist. Yeah, I have to say that. But she also takes this. She decides that while she's playing it, she's going to be twerking while doing it. And I'm just of the mindset, I don't care if you want to have somebody play it who's classically trained or whatever, but this woman is fat, disgusting, the embodiment of everything that's in modernity. And it was just the left spiking the football on us. So, not just American history in general. So, yeah, she's in my cry room this week. But that's it for this episode of News from the Pew. Like, subscribe, and share the News from the Pew. Thank you all for hanging out with us. And now, always, and forever, Viva Cristo Rey.